welcome back to part 2 of the Vengeance campaign. The campaign sees the Stone Dogs Space Marines going up against the Screaming Suns Orcs. Next battle is just about to start. This is taking place on a desert area of the planet of Cataract 4. The Space Marines were beaten in Battle 1. Lost control of the last viable landing platform on the planet, which means the Orcs have now got freedom to land at their leisure. This battle is going to use the open war cards, so we're going to look at those now and see what the scenario looks like, and then we'll look at the armies. So this is the deployment card that we've drawn, pretty straightforward. Split the table down the lengthways, player A and player B. So that's represented on the table by the line of red dice, which indicate the middle of the table all the way across. That splits the table in two. For the objective card that we've drawn is War of Attrition. So each player adds up the power ratings of all enemy units that are destroyed during the battle, and at the end of the 5th battle round, the player with the highest total wins the battle, even if their own army has been wiped out. And then for the twist, twist is Dead of Night. So this basically means that this battle starts at night time. So maximum range at the start of the battle for shooting and psychic powers is 12 inches. First turn player rolls a dice at the start of each battle round. So on a 4+, 6 inches is added on to the limit of shooting and psychic powers, and then each round, or the start of each round, roll of d4 on a 4+, 12 inches added, and then 18 inches, and then 24 inches, etc, etc, obviously up to the maximum range of each individual weapon or psychic power. And then we've got the ruse cards, which are drawn when one player has a lower power level than the other. Now, you probably realised and noticed that currently I'm playing most of these battles on my own. Well, all of the battles so far have been on my own. The plan is that my colleague will join us at some point, but currently it's just me filming these reports. So the ruse card, which was drawn by the Space Marines, who have 44 power compared to 50 power for the Orcs, have drawn this one. Outflank. Don't tell the Orcs! Pick one of your units and remove it from the battlefield. You may set it up again at the end of either your first or second movement phase, more than 9 inches from the enemy, and so that the unit is wholly within 9 inches of any battlefield edge. So that is basically at the start. So once deployment's done, we'll then look at those units and see if any of them need to be redeployed for a better tactical advantage. Okay, so let's look at the armies. So the nature of this battle is that it's intended to sort of represent skirmish action. If you remember, at the end of the first part of this battle campaign, the Orcs took control of Cataract 4, leaving small pockets of Imperial resistance dotted all over the planet's surface. This little force represents one of those pockets of resistance. It's 750 points. Leading this force, we have a Space Marine captain just in the front here with a standard, mastercrafted bolt gun and chainsword. We have a chaplain, standard Space Marine chaplain, Crozius Arcanum and bolt pistol. And then we have 3 tactical squads, all in rhinos, with flamer and chainsword on the sergeant. And then we also have the scout sniper squad with camo cloaks. And finally we have a Primaris lieutenant with a bolt rifle and bolt pistol. So that makes up 750 points of Space Marines. Let's have a look at the Orcs. Is the Orc army, 750 points. So we've got the standard war boss with power claw and big shooter, and then the shock attack gun, good old shock attack. We've got two 20-man boy squads. On the left you've got the second edition with a big shooter and a boss with a power claw, and then the other squad of 20, again big shooter and a boss with a power claw. We split those into squads of 10 just to give us the battalion detachment. We've got a 5-man squad of knobs here, killer can at the back, and then a 10-man squad of knobs over on this side. So that's 750 points of orcs. Right, so we've finished deploying. Space Marines have deployed on this side. So we've got the chaplain and 5-man squad in this rhino. Captain, 5-man squad in this one. 5-man squad in this one, and then the lieutenant is up in this building, and then the scouts are in this building. So they've got a reasonable view across the battlefield. Some good lines of fire. And the orcs obviously deployed on the other side. So we've got the war boss and a big conglomeration of boys and knobs ready to advance here, and then a killer can and a 20-boy squad here, and then the shock attack gun is deployed in the building, looking for the advantage of cover with actually a good field of fire across to the rhino in the distance there. So that's deployment complete. We've got objective markers on the table, so number 1, number 2, number 3 in this building, just on the edge. Number 4 is just here, and then 5 at the base of the statue, and then number 6 is just on the end of this abandoned pipe. Warlord trait for the Space Marines is Angel of Death, which gives them -1 leadership to any enemy units within 6 inches. Warlord trait for the Orc War Boss is Might is Right, which gives +1 to strength and attacks in the fight phase. We're just about ready to start, just looking at tactical objectives and stratagems for both sides. So we've got 3 tactical objectives for the Space Marines: Lightning Strike, Death from Above, and Blood and Guts. And we've also drawn 3 stratagems, and we've got Orbital Bombardment, Honour the Chapter, and Only in Death Does Duty End. We've also got to remember we've got the Ruse card for Space Marines as well, which means in turn 1 or 2 at movement we get to redeploy 1 unit anywhere on the table within 9 inches of the battlefield edge. And then for the Orcs, for tactical objectives, we've got Defend 2, 3 and 4. And then for stratagems, we've got Loot It, Extra Gubbins, and Get Stuck In, Lads. So that's us all set up and ready. Remembering that the first turn we've only got 12 inches worth of range because we're playing the twist of Dead of Night. So yeah, we need to bear that in mind and make sure that we roll at the start of every turn to see if the range increases. So the Space Marines finished deploying first, the Orcs are going to try and seize the initiative, which they do not. So it's Space Marines turn 1. So after the end of the Space Marines movement phase, we've moved the Rhino containing the chaplain and 1 5-man squad up to the end of this barricade. We've got the second Rhino with the captain and another tac squad and the captain have disembarked. Scouts have stayed in the building. The lieutenant has dropped down to the ground just here, and the third Rhino has moved forward into the centre area here. No shooting because there's nothing within 12 inches. No psychic, obviously no psychers on either side, so therefore no combat, no morale. Into the Orcs first turn, and just to start to get into position, this bunch of boys and knobs with the war boss have moved forwards. Again, 12 inches is the minimum range for shooting, so there's nothing within range. 20 boys and the killer can have moved forwards on this side again, nothing within range, and the shock attack gun has just remained stationary within the building. So that's it for turn one. Looking at the ruse card for the Space Marines, which is pick one of your units and remove it from the battlefield, set it up again at the end of either your first or your second movement phase. We're moving into turn two movement now for Space Marines, and actually looking at what we've got and where it's positioned, I'm actually thinking nothing needs to be redeployed. The only thing there potentially that I could do is move the tac squad into a more favourable position. So I'm going to look at that now and we'll see where we end up. So the Space Marines ruse card has been played at the end of, at the start of the second movement phase. We've taken the tac squad that came out of this yellow rhino, and we've redeployed over here on the Orcs' left flank. This is within 9 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches away from the closest enemy unit, which in this case is the shock attack gun. So that's a really good position and quite a useful little tactic. So now moving into Space Marines movement proper for the second turn. So having thought about it, this redeployment tactic from the ruse card, it says at the end of either your first or second movement phase. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that that happened at the end of the first movement phase, and as a result of that, that would give the shock attack gun, who's within 12 inches, the opportunity to fire at that unit in the Orcs shoot phase. So I'm going to do that now just to get that sorted, and then we'll continue with Space Marines turn 2. So this is going to be at strength 4, and we're doing heavy D6 for 5 shots, so 5 shots at strength 4. So these hit on a 5. So we've got 1 hit, strength 4 versus toughness 4. So that is a wound, and it's -5 AP, D6 damage. So that's 3 damage. So that's 3 dead Space Marines, because they can't save against that. Okay, so moving into Space Marines turn 2. End of Space Marines movement turn 2. We've got a rhino that's moved up on the left hand edge of the board. Space Marines have deployed, as have the chaplain, within shooting distance now of the boys on this flank. The yellow rhinos move forwards. Captain has deployed, or Captain was already deployed, he's just moved up, so they're now within 12 inches of the war boss. The lieutenant has moved on to the objective at the base of the building here. Snipers are still in situ. And over on this side we've got the rhino and a deployed unit of tactical marines here, and the remaining 2 tacs on this side have just moved forward so that they're in flamer range of the shock attack gun. Flamer first into the shock attack gun. This is D6 auto hits, and we've got 5. These are strength 4 versus toughness 4, but we've got cover, so that would normally be a 4. It's now a 5 to wound. And we've got 1 wound. And shock attack gets a 4-up save, which is failed, so that's 1 wound. Sergeant's pistol next. 1 shot hitting on a 3. That's a miss. Chaplain now shooting into the boys. 1 shot hitting on a 3. That's a hit. Strength 4, toughness 4. That's no wound. Hitting on a 3, but no matter. Okay, so then we've got 3 bolters, which are within 12 inches. So let's rapid fire. So 2 shots each, hitting on 3s. Okay, so we've got 4 hits, strength 4, toughness 4. No wounds. Flamer, D6 auto hits for 5. Strength 4, toughness 4. So 4 wounds. And 4 6-up saves for the orcs. So that's 4 dead orcs. Sergeant's bolt pistol hitting on a 3. That's a hit. Strength 4, toughness 4. That's a wound. 6-up save is saved. Final bit of shooting now is the Rhino Stormbolter. So it's rapid fire 2. So 4 shots hitting on 3s. Okay, so that's 3 hits, and it's strength 4 versus toughness 4. Okay, so 1 wound. 6-up save for the orcs. Okay, 1 more gone. Bolter from the Rhino into the war boss. So rapid fire again, hitting on 4s. Strength 4 versus toughness 4, I think. Let's just double check. Toughness 5, so 5's to wound. No wounds. And then the captain, who's got a mastercrafted bolt gun, I believe. So the captain with his mastercrafted bolt gun, it's rapid fire 1, so 2 shots. That is 2 hits. Strength 4, toughness 5, 5's to wound. No wounds. The only other thing that I can do, and I'm going to do, is the hunter-killer missile on this Rhino is going to fire into the war boss. So this is heavy 1, hitting on a 3. So that's hits. Now this is strength 8 versus toughness 5, so it's 3's to wound. That wounds. It's -1 AP. -2 AP, I should say. So that's a 6-up save for the war boss, which he doesn't save. And it's D6 damage for only 1 damage. Now I'm going to command point re-roll that for 3, so 3 points of damage. The boys have moved forwards just their standard 5 inches, well within charge range here. We've got an advance from the war boss and the knobs, who are in linked range, so when he charges they can charge. The killer can has just moved normally just to cover the flank of the Rhino, and these boys have moved forwards onto this objective. Shock attack has stayed where he is. We've just rolled for range. The range has gone up to 18 inches, so there's a little bit more light, little bit more visibility, which means that actually these snipers now start to come into play, as does the lieutenant with his bolt rifle. So we should see a bit more ranged shooting coming in the next few turns. So moving on to shooting for the orcs. So at the end of the orcs shooting phase, this squad of boys has managed to take out 2 of the tactical unit. No other damage inflicted. We had shots from the war boss and from about 2/3 of this knob squad going into the captain, but no damage caused. Rocket launcher from the killer can, again into the captain, no damage caused. These boys are out of range, and the shock attack gun, although it rolled strength 10 and 5 hits, none of them managed to wound, so live to fight another day. So that's it for the orcs turn 2. Through the fight phase for the orcs. So the orcs got a charge off into the Rhino and the chaplain, took some wounds off the chaplain and a couple of wounds off the Rhino. In retaliation, the chaplain took out an extra 2 of the boys. However, the Rhino did no damage in return. And then in this combat in the middle here, everybody made it in. The captain and the war boss took each other down to 1 wound each. However, then the 3 knobs that are in behind the war boss got to fight also, and took the last wound off the captain. So that is Slay the Warlord for the orcs. That's all of the fight phase done now, so we're moving into turn number 3. So Space Marines movement phase is complete. Rhino has moved forwards to support the solitary sergeant who's moved forwards to get into charge range of the shock attack. Attack squad has moved up into this building, got range now on these units of boys, or this unit of boys I should say. Snipers are remaining in the building. The lieutenant has moved across onto the end of this pipe, looking to potentially target the killer can. This rhino hasn't moved, probably going to charge just to tie these knobs up, and then on this side no movement. We're just looking potentially for a charge for the remaining Space Marines into the boys on this flank. So that's it for movement. Moving into the shooting phase. So after the shooting and then the charge phase, we've ended up with the Space Marine squad, the balance of in combat with these boys. The Rhino elected not to charge, is outside of 1 inch, and is waiting to see if these knobs and the war boss charge in so that we can take the advantage of Overwatch. The killer can is now on 1 wound. It was down to 0, but with a command point reroll managed to salvage 1 wound, so prevented that from potentially exploding. We've lost 2 Space Marines from this squad due to Overwatch from the boys, and the shock attack gun failed to do any damage on Overwatch on the charge by the sergeant, who's on 1 wound. The shock attack gun's now down to 2 wounds. So that is the end of the charge phase. So we're moving into the Space Marines fight phase. So at the end of that phase, this lonely little sergeant is still hanging on by the skin of his teeth. We've lost the rest of the unit from the centre here. Having taken out a couple of boys, the boys hit back really hard and dealt out 3 wounds, which was just enough to take those last few Marines off the table. And here, nothing much going on at all. However, over on this side, the chaplain's taken out another couple of boys. The Space Marines took out a couple of boys, but in retaliation, the Orcs took out one of their number. So 3 wounds left in that squad. So that's it for the Space Marines. Going to roll from around now, and then we'll be moving into Orcs. That's the Orc movement phase over. So the killer can has moved up towards the lieutenant, and this squad of boys have moved across to the left to start targeting this rhino. No other movement on the board apart from the war boss, who's just skipped over to the other side of this barricade just to allow the knobs to charge into the rhino. So Orcs shooting phase. So after movement and shooting for the Orcs, just finished the charge phase. We've got the knobs into the rhino. 1 wound off the rhino, 1 wound off the knobs. War boss has elected to stay out of that combat for now, quite wisely, being on 1 wound. Killer can there hasn't moved. Still no real changes. He's still on 1 wound. The boys over on this flank took a wound off the rhino in the shooting phase. Lost no wounds in the Overwatch section of the charge, made it in no problems at all. So hand to hand all the way. We're still at 18-inch range. We rolled for some more visibility, but didn't get it, so 18-inch range is the maximum. So we've got to the end of the fight phase for the Orcs. So they've managed to strip this rhino down to 6 wounds. The shock attack gun, the big mech, has taken out the sergeant, who was on 1 wound. We've got mixed results over here, and we've got a sergeant left on 1 wound over here, and the chaplain has been taken out. A few Orcs gone from this squad, but it's not looking too clever currently. So that's the end of the turn, and it's Space Marines up next. A very limited set of movement for the Space Marines. Literally, the lieutenant has just moved into this gap between the 2 parts of this building, moving to intercept the war boss on 1 wound, but that's it. Did consider dropping the scouts down out of the building, to try and close range, because having rolled for range we're still at 18 inches. However, if they move, obviously they're at -1 to hit, because they're heavy weapons, so elected to keep them where they are. They still have range on the killer cans, so we may be able to take that last wound off it this turn. Yeah, so that's it for movement. So shooting phase is up. 5 shots from the sniper rifles into the killer can. So these hit on a 3, and 6s are mortal wounds. So re-roll that one. Sorry, no, that was a hit. That was a 4. Sorry, and I need to re-roll 1 for the mortal wound. So I get 3 hits. Okay, so 3 hits on the kill can. It's strength 5, toughness 4 weapons, so 5s to wound. And that's the way the dice are rolling currently. That's no wounds at all. So great. Okay, moving on. So it's the Primaris Lieutenant next. He'll be shooting at the. So this is 2 shots hitting on 2s. So that's 2 hits. Strength 4 weapon versus toughness 5 for the war boss. So that's 1 wound, and the war boss has a 4-up save, which he doesn't save. So actually taking the war boss off the table is quite an advantage, because that removes the 6-inch bubble. So any further charging will have to be without a preceding advance for any of the orcs that are left on the table. So that's a good phase is over. Not declaring any charges for the Space Marines. There's only this guy who has the potential to do so, but I want to keep him free to potentially tackle the killer can in the next turn. So no charges for Space Marines. So we're just moving straight into the fight phase, and we're going to start over this side. So this rhino is now down to 2 wounds. Has taken out 1 or 2 more boys, but the boys are slowly whittling him down. So my only hope at the moment is that they get to a point where this actually explodes. So we'll see what happens if that's the case. Over in the middle here, another wound off this rhino. 1 boy gone. Sorry, 1 knob gone. And then over the far side, this rhino's now down to 3 wounds and has dealt no damage in return. So that's the end of the Space Marines' turn, and we're moving into the Orcs' turn next. So really quick movement and shooting phase for the Orcs. The killer can literally moved 2 inches just to ensure that it was in range of the whole of this scout squad, and then fired its rocket launcher, which is strength 8. Managed to deal 3 wounds at -2 AP, 3 failed saves, and 3 dead scouts. So that's it for shooting for the Orcs. So we're now moving into charges and fight phase. There are no charges to declare, so we're just going to carry on with all of the melee that's going on across the table. Right, so at the end of that turn, look at that. So rhino destroyed here, didn't explode. And rhino destroyed here, didn't explode. As a result of this one being destroyed, this squad have gained, after spending the command point, they've gained +1 to their saves. So you can see that vehicle is destroyed within 3 inches. Improve the save characteristic of that infantry unit by 1. So they are now rocking a 5-up save instead of a 6-up save. Okay, so that's the end of the Orc turn. So we're now moving back into Space Marines. Well, end of the shooting phase. Literally 1 shot fired in the whole phase. That was from the lieutenant who shot at the killer can. Hit and then wounded, and then the killer can exploded, but there was nothing within 3 inches, so no real damage caused. So that means that the snipers, who now have 24-inch range, we've just rolled for that, can't shoot at anything because these guys are in combat. These guys are too far away, and these guys are out of range or not visible. So there's nothing for them to shoot at. So fight phase it is. Okay, then end of the fight phase, and the rhino has lost another wound, no damage dealt in return, and that is the end of Space Marines turn number 5. We're moving into Orcs turn 5 now. So let's see what the lay of the land is. Orc movement phase complete. These guys have advanced. They got a massive extra inch on their advance, but there is a big shooter in there as well, which is an assault weapon, so we might be in range of something. We haven't measured yet. We'll have to wait and see. Nothing moved in the middle there. These boys have done an about face and advanced in the other direction again, because there's a big shooter in there that's a assault weapon, so that can shoot even if they've advanced. Shock attack guns just stayed put as it's heavy, so no need for it to move. So that's it for movement. So moving into shooting phase next. Okay, so shooting, the big shooter here is in range of the snipers. However, the snipers are in a building, so bearing in mind this is BS of 5, that would mean they would need a 7 to be able to hit those snipers, which obviously is impossible. So they couldn't shoot. The big shooter in this squad fired at the lieutenant and did no damage. However, the shock attack gun with 60-inch range on a strength 4 shot did 4 wounds. So that's dropped the lieutenant down to 1 single wound. So it's looking pretty ropey for the Space Marines. So we're now looking at the charge and fight phase for the Orcs. So charges, there aren't any to declare. These knobs have consolidated to get more attacks into the Rhino. The guys over on the far side are too far away. So it's literally just this combat, and then that'll be the end of the set. So this is pretty intense. Knobs get 3 attacks each. With their choppers they get an extra attack, so that makes 4 attacks each basically. So we've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36 attacks into the Rhino. Hold the camera and roll at the same time, but this is 36 attacks hitting on 3s. So let's take out everything that's not a 3 or above. First of all, see where we're up to. So that's not too shabby. And then these are strength 4 versus toughness 7. So these are 5 to wound. Do them in batches. So that's 3. Another 2. Last batch. Okay, so those are all to come out. Okay, and then these are all wounds, so it's a 3-up save. So we've lost another 2 wounds off the Rhino. So that's the Rhino down to 4. Rhino's going to hit back. Now, Rhinos being Rhinos, basically he's got to try and run them over. So 3 attacks hitting on 6s. So we've got 1 hit, strength 7 versus toughness 4, so 3 to wound. That's a wound, and the knobs get a 4-up save. So that's 1 wound off the knobs. So that is the end of turn 5. Now, the objective of this game is War of Attrition. So each player adds up the power ratings of all enemy units that are destroyed during the battle. At the end of the 5th battle round, the player with the highest total wins the battle, even if their own army has been wiped out. So I'm just going to go and add that up, but I've got a fair idea I know who's won. So at the end of the game, the Orcs have a resounding victory. They've managed to take out the 3 5-man squads of TAC Marines. They've taken out 2 Rhinos. They've taken out the captain, the chaplain, and 3 of the 5-man sniper squads. In retaliation, the Space Marines have managed to take out the war boss, the killer can, 3 of the boys from this unit, 1 knob from this unit, and 13 boys from this unit. So as I say, the Orcs are victorious. This is not looking good for Cataract 4. So, victory points wise, the Orcs are on 4 and the Space Marines are on 1. So, not a great day for the Space Marines. That's the end of the battle. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you all next time.